Boom, we are live. What's going on, man? Back with my guy, Jesse, KIR Finance. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, doing great. How you been?
Chilling like a villain. Got through the holidays okay. We're all still alive, right?
I was gonna say you
So,
staying warm up there in Canada.
oh, dude, I cannot stand being cold. I hate it. I get
Yeah,
like when I get cold, I get like angry that I'm cold. I'm like, I hate this, right?
that's funny. Yeah, I've always been being originally from the North Dakota, Minnesota area. I run hot all the time, and I live in Florida, so I mean, there's certain months here where it's like I can't even go outside, and when it starts to get cold here, I'm like, yes, I'm back.
I'm back, baby. That's funny. I'm actually in Florida next month.
Really?
Yep.
Where
I
are you gonna
have
be?
I gotta get the name of the town still in Florida, but I'll let you know. I have a meeting with a guy that I actually used to wrestle for his company, the American Wrestling Federation, and most of the northern states. And we're talking about opening a used car dealership down in Florida. So
Really?
yeah, so I got to go down there for a business meeting, and I figured I'd probably catch a hockey game or something while I'm there. So,
Oh, are you going to Tampa? Are you coming?
well, I mean, the way I figured it, the reason I chose February was because my Leafs are down there and doing the Florida tour of Tampa and the Panthers. So I figured I'll catch a game or two. I know tickets are way cheaper down there than they are in Canada. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine the Leafs have got to be very expensive in Canada.
dude, you're looking at just for seats, and not even like great ones. You're probably looking at like a grand.
Okay, let me ask you a hockey question. So, I remember a couple years back when Stamkos was going to be a free agent, and they were like, "Oh, is he finally going? Is he finally going to do it? He's going to the Leafs." And then they, sent him to the Predators, Nashville, right? And it was kind of like, "What?" And I think even like everybody in Tampa was like, "What?" And then he was just kind of gone. Weird.
Well, it was funny when that happened. Everyone thought because Nashville signed a bunch of UFAs at that time, right?
Yeah.
And did some trading, and on paper they looked like they were going to be like this juggernaut of a potential hockey club here with the addition of Stamkos and it was like their worst year ever for the franchise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoops. I don't know how much basketball you watch, but I remember I can't remember how long ago it was. It was probably like 10, 12 years ago now, but um, was it Miami? Miami signed like they took like Bosch and two other like I can't
Yeah, it
remember
was
who.
LeBron and Wade, the three of them.
Yes. All three of them signed on one team, and it was supposed to be like this massive, and I don't think that panned out to be a dynasty either, did it?
Not really, but it kind of started something new in the NBA where I think prior to them doing that, it was the rivals, right? And like the era of like, Bird versus Johnson and then, obviously Jordan came on and they never wanted to be together on the same team. They wanted to go against those guys. And that kind of changed everything in the NBA that now they paired up like a super team.
Well, and that yeah, the thing I find when you try to sign a bunch of superstars like that to one team, they all have big personalities too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They all want the ball all the time, and it's the same thing in hockey. I can't. I think it was uh, Babcock that had said, you can have a lot of superstars on a team, but there's only one puck, right? Right? And every puck
Right?
you want. So it's a good point, right? Because they all want to be the guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know who I never realized was as good as he was PK Subban. Um I don't know how I got in the Oh, I probably do know how I got caught, but somehow I got caught in the reel of like some of the Jackass videos. And one of them was the one where PK, yeah, like they bring out, one of their Jackass guys and they put him on the ice to be goalie. And PK is like, yeah, you're done, dude. And like it was the very first puck shot, it's like straight in the nuts, and the very, very next one right in the face. I was like, oh my God, like this guy could like hit it from like, across the rink, like dead on, like wherever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's definitely very, very, he was very, very good anyway. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree, man. You don't realize, how good a lot of these athletes are until, you actually get to see them up close. Same thing like when I went to SmackDown wrestling for the first time. I don't know if you watched much wrestling before, but the Big Show is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was front row, and you don't get a feel for how big that dude is until he's walking down right beside you, and you're like at his waist, looking up like.
That's awesome.
Crazy, man. So what do you think about this recent pump over the last 3 days? We now officially have 3 green daily candles in a row. Well, today's technically could close red if we dropped, but I mean, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts right now?
I think that the market, hopefully, I say that with a grain of salt, has found a bottom, right? That's kind of what I've been looking at on sort of the main charts is, have we finally bottomed out? Has everything steadied? Some of the indicators I look at, it hasn't signaled buy yet, but it seems close. It seems close, and it's a new year and it's a new month. And sometimes in crypto, you really kind of need that to sort of turn the page. Now, what's interesting is that last year sort of broke the Bitcoin cycle. I don't know if you saw that, but Bitcoin historically would have like 3 good years, 1 down year, 3 good years, 1 down year. Well, last year broke the cycle of the 3rd good year, and it was only 2 good years, and last year was a down year. So that's really kind of unique in this whole thing. That I don't know if that just finally happened because of the institutional involvement that's going on now, but it likely played a role in it.
Well, I mean, my thoughts on it, I've been, it's funny you mentioned that because I've kind of been having a little bit of an internal tug of war when it comes to that. I see what you mean. I'm looking at the yearly right now. Put it up. Right? Bitcoin USD. I'm looking at the yearly here, and yeah, I mean 1, 2, and then we got this little red one here, right? But I've just been looking at this red one, and I'm like, there's this constant argument. Like I was watching, I can't remember who it was, but their argument was, well, the 4-year cycle's broken because this candle's red. I was like, yeah, yes, okay, valid. However, I would argue that Bitcoin still topped the same average amount of days from the Bitcoin halving event to the top of the cycle. And it's still topped in the fall of the post halving year, like it would have in a 4-year cycle. So it's broken. I guess my argument would be one metric of the 4-year cycle broke, but there's also a lot that's still intact as well, right? Mm-hmm. Bitcoin technically still topped exactly when it should have. It dropped faster than we anticipated to end the year red. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that Bitcoin is still what it's historically been, right? It's the first scarce digital asset / commodity. And that's still true, right? Mm-hmm. So long term, if you look at from, start through present day, do I think it's going to keep going up? Yes, I do. Now, what I think is unique this time around is that previously, at least through the last 3 cycles or so, everything was getting predictable, right? And maybe it
Yeah.
got too predictable to the point of, obviously like Plan B and his Bitcoin chart and all that, and saying, yeah, it's going to hit this number. And, I mean, how many chartists do you see out there, across X that said, yeah, it's definitely hitting this number, and then it's like, it didn't happen. And it kind of throws all the charting out the window, at least in a short-term view. Long-term, like I said, I still think it's legit, and I still think it continues to go up, especially as it gets to more and more people. Like you and I have talked before about it getting into the U.S. retirement accounts, and to my knowledge, it still hasn't really done that, even though supposedly it was supposed to be doing that last year. I haven't seen it. So I still think it goes up. It's just maybe a little bit different schedule and not as predictable as it was before. Now, I would say outside of Bitcoin, though, what's been kind of disappointing, I would say really disappointing, is the altcoin side of things. Especially versus kind of the historical years building up. I mean, usually altcoins always kind of topped previous all-time highs and kind of, broke higher, right? And I haven't really seen that across the board. It's really kind of like maybe the top 10 has sort of done well, and everyone else kind of hasn't done as well as they would have in prior years. So I don't know if that's simply just because the market's gotten bigger, or, maybe there's other factors there.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just let me just looking for something here. I wanna have a look at the gold spot ETF. Cause let me share my screen again here. I'm sure I mean, what happened, this was the launch of the very first, this line right here was the launch of the first gold ETF, spot ETF, right? And as we know, for the most part, I mean, you got some significant dips and stuff like that. Like there's been a lot of arguments I've seen. This is like a 57% correction. It's pretty big for gold. Holy smokes, right? 56%.
Yeah.
But for the most part, as we travel along here, as you can see, just up, 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 up on gold since the ETF launch, right? Like, look at that, all the way till today.
Yeah.
That is a crazy run up from when it launched in 2003. Now, the argument that I've seen is that when we saw the first gold spot ETF launch, gold had about an 8-year bull run. So a lot of arguments I'm seeing is, are we about to witness the same thing happen with Bitcoin, whereas everyone thinks we're still, including myself, I've made arguments for the 4-year cycle, that we're going to be, going down, and we're going to be still in this 4-year cycle thing. However, what do you think about the possibility of the potential of that all shattering and Bitcoin going on an 8-year bull run, similar to how gold did?
I think it's possible. I know previously when I've kind of analyzed Bitcoin and, the rewards that are being released and kind of the schedule and everything, I think I had calculated like the basic window, let's say, to get Bitcoin was kind of like between now and about 2035, right? And I think what I was getting at there was that for everybody who thought like they missed the boat, well, the time to get in the boat's now, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's true, because after that, the rewards just get so small, to the point that anything you're acquiring now is absolutely huge, even if you feel like it's nothing, right? Now that being said, I mean, your average person likely isn't buying it and holding it for decades on end. A lot of people, they buy it and they hold it at least through a couple of cycles, and then they may cash some out to, pay off their house or something like that. So, I mean, I totally understand that. But I do think that window of time that, like if you thought like if you're kicking yourself like, God, I wish I had gotten in, by 2017, I missed it. Well, I don't think you missed it, truthfully. And I think at 2035, you're going to be looking back now going, God, I wish I bought it then. I missed it, So, I mean, the opportunity's there. Now, the other thing with gold is that gold, historically, people invest in it when the markets are uncertain, right? And I would say that we're in a very uncertain time right now. And you can kind of see that the gold trending along with that in multiple areas. I mean, like the US debt's completely out of control. We just did this thing with Venezuela. You got the Russian war with Ukraine. There's all kinds of geopolitical stuff going on, and there isn't a whole lot of stability. Then you tack on the tariffs, you tack on the inflation, you tack on COVID, all these crazy things. So theoretically, I can see why gold took off. And, Bitcoin itself, if it's kind of decoupling from the traditional S&P 500 type stuff, it should be a great thing to invest in easily within this whole decade. I think it would be a good thing to invest in. Now, obviously not investment advice. I'm just saying this is what I'm doing, but you don't have to do what I'm doing. No.
Well, actually, it's funny. I had a friend about 3 years ago, I think it was, like, took out a second mortgage on his house and put it all into gold and silver. At the time, I said, dude, not the best idea in the world, right? There was not, to that point, there was not a lot of volatility in gold and silver to the degree you're seeing in crypto, right? So to do that, for me, was just like it's more of a hedge. You're taking out a second mortgage on your house to hedge, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. But who's the dummy now as we look forward, right?
It works out if you confront it, right? Truthfully.
Yes. So he's laughing, he's still holding, and he's laughing all the way to the bank now.
Yeah.
I talked to him and I said, if it was me personally, I mean, we were at the same time, I was buying silver at the same time too. It was like 24 in Canada. It was like $24 an ounce, right? Canadian or American, whatever. It's based on American prices. But I told him, I said, what I would do is I would take out my initial investment of it now and pay that second mortgage off and just hold the rest as free money now, right? That's what I would personally do. So why would you continue to have that second mortgage, right? Pay it off.
Yeah, it depends. So let me tell you a story. So I did something similar like this with real estate. So we, going back in time, first house I had bought, lost money on it, right? I spent money on it the whole time we lived there, about 5 years, lost money, ended up selling it at probably like a 17 grand loss off of what I bought it at, right? Just the market sucked. I couldn't believe it. So mad. Turn around. Next place I got was in a master planned area. Took off. And at the time, it had been sort of floundering for years, right? Took off. So had all the equity, took that equity and turned it into 2 more houses. So turned one house into 3. And in the time since, each one of them has appreciated a good 200 grand, let's say average, easy. All 3 are 200 grand, right? So now I still have the HELOC, which is kind of like the fly in the ointment there, and you say, well, you could just sell one and cash it in, right? You could just sell them, but then I'm kind of like, but I don't want to. I don't want to sell them. I want to keep them in the portfolio, right? So I could see where maybe your buddy's thinking the same thing, like, I think I'm going to hold them a little longer, and I'll just keep pushing this thing off a little bit longer, right?
Yeah. I bought some stocks last week, and I had a lot of questions. I always put my buy alerts over in our Patreon community, and I started getting questions like, "What are you buying stocks? Like, the S&P 500 has been running for like a year and a half with gold and silver, and like, why would you buy like at local tops kind of thing?" And for me, that is my stocks and precious metals and stuff is 10, 15 years down the road, right? I don't care what something like Nvidia, I don't care what their price is right now. I care what their price is going to be 10, 15 years from now, which I believe is going to be significantly higher. And to be honest with you, as far as the S&P 500, I still think there's a little bit more growth for the rest of this year, for most of this year in the S&P 500. I think that we're going to start to see, because as you know, when you start quantitative easing, when you start money printing and rate cutting and stuff like that, it takes 3, 4, 5 months for the economy to start to feel the effects of that stuff. It's not instantaneous, right? So if we're just starting that now, we're just dipping our toe in, which will become, in my opinion, a little bit more aggressive when the new Fed chair comes in. It's still going to be 3, 4, 5 months before the economy starts to feel the effect of that. And that, at that point, I think that's where you're going to start to see liquidity flow out of your gold and silver, and because I think silver is going to come close to $100. I think $100 is going to be the rejection level, strong psychological kind of point, right? So I think we have most of the year for that to happen. And again, like I always like to say, if it's a bear market, there's a bull run somewhere, right? Somewhere there's a bull run. Liquidity is flowing somewhere. It's just up to you to find out where it is. Is it in the stocks? Is it in precious metals? Is it in real estate? Is it in crypto? Where is it? The money's somewhere, right?
Right.
So you just got to find it and then be able to track where it probably is going to go next. So for me, with the economy doing what it's doing, like with them doing what they're doing in terms of the economy, you're going to start to feel the effects of that in the latter part of 2026. And I think at the same time, that's when you're going to start to see risk appetite start to come back, right? Your Russell 2000, your crypto, your stuff like that, as we see the effects on the economy of stimulus and money printing and all that other stuff. And I think that's where it's going to get very, very toppy for the S&P 500 and precious metals, and that liquidity I think is going to start to flow into more risk on assets. And I think that's where you're going to start to see maybe a tail end run of 2026. So,
do you ever see where I think it's USDT Tether? Every big bull run coincides with Tether printing just a shitload of coins.
Yeah,
this is true.
Not a coincidence.
I had seen something the other day about Tether printing a bunch of coins, and I thought, hey, maybe we found the bottom.
Oh la la, here we go.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Circle, I would imagine the same thing's going to happen with Circle. Maybe this is the cycle where we start to see more minting of USDC versus USDT. Because we know that the US, in terms of adoption, is far more heavily leaning towards Circle than they are Tether, right?
Yeah, I think the USDC is obviously US centric, but I think the rest of the world is leery of that, which is why they're more USDT centric, like especially Asia. Like Asia is not USDC.
Yeah, I just covered that story. I covered that story about 2 days ago. South Korea and Japan are pushing for their investors or retail investors and stuff to lean more towards their own stable coins as opposed to Tether and Circle, which should come to at the surprise of nobody.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
every country's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember historically kind of seeing that with, with Justin's son and Tron, and everybody's like, this guy, like, what's he doing? I mean, outside of all the little publicity stunts, like, he ate the banana that was taped to the picture or whatever, but what's weird is like when you look at his various coins, and I don't know how many he still has, but at one point he had like 5 to 7 different coins, and there was a ton of money flowing in and out of those all through the Asia markets. And I know they don't want the same kind of overlap where it's all in like, one party's hands here in the US. So
Yeah.
I can kind of see that other side of it,
It's their own country's best interests, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd like to rewind to the whole banana thing for a second here. Right?
Okay, let's talk bananas.
Let's talk bananas. Okay. First off, I can't believe people fell for that. Like, it was like, oh, he ate it. It wasn't the same banana, dude. He just taped the new. There's no way that banana was still ripe.
It was the same banana.
Like, that thing would have been black on the wall. You'd be eating it with a spoon or a straw. It's liquid.
This is true.
Just like 2 months later, he's eating the banana. It's still ripe. It's still yellow.
Well, remember, he also bought the ETH Rock, the Ethereum Rock NFT. He bought one of those too for like $1 million.
That guy. I guess he just buys everything and figures maybe some of it will take off, right? You're gonna have your misses, but
Yeah, I imagine like the other guys in crypto are just like, God, I hate that guy.
Well, considering the way he strong arms companies too, like I would love to see the SEC go after him personally. Like I don't know if you heard what he did with XCN Onyx Coin.
No.
Right? But they like, and then he did it again with another company after that. But what he did was, so XCN went on like a 400 or 500% run over the course of like 8 to 10 weeks or something like that, right? Went on a big run. And a lot of us in our Patreon, we were invested in. We made a lot of money on that call, right? And Justin's son comes along and starts making public accusations that it was price manipulation by the team, and that's why the project did what it did, like went on that run or whatever. He started making all these public accusations on X and everything like that, and just kept fudding it. And there's articles coming out, and then it comes out, oh, Justin's son just got they agreed to give him like X amount of coins, and he locked them up and he's staking them, and then all of a sudden he started talking about how great Onyx Coin is as a project and stuff like that, right? So he strong armed them basically and said, give me coins, I want interest in your company, or else I'm going to try to destroy it, right? So they gave him coins, and the community was mixed about it because they were like, what the hell, dude? You were fudding the project, and now you're like, oh, it's the greatest project in the world, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes out like the next month he was doing the same thing to another project, and they gave him coins, and then all of a sudden he was talking good about it. And I was like, that's extortion. I'm pretty sure that's against the law, right?
Yeah, that's a great example of like things in public aren't what they appear behind the curtain, right? So that means behind the curtain, he was trying to get some deal with them, likely,
Yeah.
and it didn't work out. And then he strong armed them publicly to then make the deal happen.
Yeah,
he was probably asking for more equity than they were willing to give. Is basically what it is.
Yeah, they gave him an absurd amount of coins too, like, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm locked into staking them for like he locked up. I think it was like 400 million or I don't know, something like that, right? They gave him a lot. He staked like half for 12 months, and then he could only unstake the second half after 24 months, right? But it's like, well, basically, here's the thing: the XCN protocol at the time was giving off, I believe, somewhere around 37-38% yield on staking.
Okay.
So he agreed. So he basically, what happened was he agreed to stake a massive portion, like a massive amount of tokens that they gave him for free, but he was allowed to claim the rewards because there's no lockup. There's no lockup period for the retail investor, so he could claim his rewards all the time. So he was gaining passive income through staking his Onyx coin that he strong armed the company into giving him, right? Like that's they say that like most of the bad actors in crypto are gone, and a lot of them are, right? Your Do Kwons, your Sam Bankman-Frieds, but Justin Sun, I think for me personally, he's like one of the last ones standing that's got to go. They got to the government's got to come in, whatever regulators got to come in, they got to get him out of crypto. Like he's bad for the space, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you can't go around doing that.
Well, he kind of operates. I could be wrong, but I thought he was somewhere like Singapore or China or somewhere. He's sort of like in a wild west of crypto where he's kind of like untouchable, and that's where he operates, you know?
Because he knows what he's doing is not above board. That's why, right?
Yeah.
Like his they say that Tron is completely decentralized, yet they never, like I read like 6 months ago or something like that Justin Sun removed liquidity without going through the DAO and getting a community vote and stuff like that. It's just, okay, well then you're not really decentralized if you can just kind of reach in and take money anytime you want, right? And allocate it wherever you want it. Decentralization is the community has to have a say. It's not optional for the community to have a say. It's mandatory.
Yeah, he's he's historically done some moves that are kind of head scratchers, right? Like, I don't know if you followed BitTorrent.
Yeah.
BitTorrent for a while was really kind of humming along, and it had a really good run at one point where I remember it went from like maybe like a penny and a half to like 28 cents or something like that. I mean, it was just on a tear. And somewhere along that line, he acquired it. And that was kind of weird that he just like bought it or whatever. and then he created the BitTorrent chain, and that sounded like a good idea. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, cool, like more throughput, more transactions, something people can build on. It's got all these great things going for it. Okay, great. That's awesome, right? But then it was like the way that they converted the supply of the original BitTorrent to the BitTorrent chain. So it was like, I think it was BitTorrent was like BT, and I think it went to BTTC, I think is what it did. And anyway, it was like he inflated the supply like drastically. So like if you had like one, now it was worth like 0.001, and you're like, what? Like it was kind of like he like went the opposite direction, like usually you want stuff that's deflationary, right? Like it's got to burn or something like that. He did the opposite. So he inflated the hell out of it on the BitTorrent chain, and like to my knowledge, it really hasn't done a whole lot since. Like I still have some of it that's like staked, and it just kind of like floats around. It's not really doing a whole lot, and it's just like, you totally ruined it, didn't you? Like I feel like he had something good there, and then he, like you said, like there's like an element of a thread of like greed or something. Yeah. It's kind of like right there under the surface, and I think he like poisoned it.
Well, I think Veracity did something very similar, which really disappointed me because I remember must have been about 2 years ago, I was covering Veracity a lot, and there was all of this story from the team that their max supply was like 100 was it 100 billion, right? But they were going to slash the supply by 90%. So there was only going to be 10 billion tokens left. That was the big thing, right?
Okay.
And I was like, well, like, damn, that's fantastic, right? As most people kind of, felt. But recently, I mean, the price of veracity just plummeted because instead of doing that, they ended up increasing the supply. They minted a bunch more tokens, and they gave some, I don't know, half-hearted reason why they were doing it, right? But they increased the amount of supply. They increased the max supply, and it's like, well, you just screwed. If there's any companies out there watching right now, okay, understand this. If you decide you're going to increase the max supply of your tokens, I'm not being facetious. You've just killed your own project, right? You will kill your project, right? Because you are screwing over every single person who currently is holding your tokens. They're never going to buy more from you after seeing that, and nor will anybody who sees you do it. So you might as well just close up shop, right? Right?
Yeah, I would imagine. See, what probably happened there is they probably had a set schedule, right, where they were releasing the tokens, and then the market tanked, and then they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, pants down, pants on fire, and they were all leveraged in one boat, and all of a sudden they don't have enough money for their operation, and they're going, oh shoot, we need more money, we got to raise money, and then all of a sudden, hey, guess what, we're going to mint a few more coins, and let's tell you why this is a good thing, because now we can work on the ecosystem and expand the project and further the reach and all of our goals, right?
Trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. Yeah. That's an awesome example of how I think in crypto, like, we've talked about this before, how everybody gets really like tribal and territorial, and everyone wants to tell you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know. You haven't read it. You're not following it. And then all of a sudden, like the following day, they change and they say, hey, even though we had all this written down, we're making an addendum. And it's like, what? Yeah, we're gonna add more supply. And truthfully, they can do that. Okay. Yeah. Things change,
Yeah.
That's a funny example of it. But yeah, I mean, for the holders who have been there all along that are thinking, hey, we've been holding, we've been loyal investors. It's like, yeah, thanks for the payoff here. You're diluting us,
Yeah. I made a short about a week ago, and same thing. It was about silver and Bitcoin, and I said that I was expecting a red day, one or two red days, as silver hit $82, right? I said I'm expecting a bit of a pullback on this. People are going to take profits, and it's just like you said. Somebody hops in the comment section. You don't know, silver metals don't work that way. That's what he said. You don't know. The next day, boom, like a 20% correction because people took profits. Turns out metals do work that way.
Yeah. I tell my wife often that we're in a phase of the world where everyone's an expert and no one knows what they're doing, and you're kind of reminded of that constantly. Not to say that I'm an expert, because I am not an expert, but I'm just saying that everybody wants to tell you like they're 100%, and then things change, and it's like, oh, they can do that, and like, yeah, they can. You can just add more supply.
Well, because I think that the problem is investing is kind of, which is good, and it's largely due to crypto, but investing has started to become kind of a mainstream, kind of like the cool thing to do now, right? The popular thing to talk about, which is great for younger people and stuff like that, for sure. But the problem in that is that it got so entwined with social media and these younger generations who already felt like their opinion was fact, right? Gets all twisted together, and you have a whole generation of people who are invested in crypto right now who think that because they have a thought about something, that must be factual now because it manufactured in their brain that this is how it works. while having no actual understanding of how it works, right? Because they don't actually read a white paper or do anything, right? Or do any research. But I think that's been one of the biggest problems when it comes to crypto and investing in general, is that, like I said, it's been too entwined with social media. People's feelings are involved, and you get the result of that is you get a circus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like people, like, I use this, I've been talking about this the last week over on the Patreon, is that I often say, and most crypto YouTubers often say the same thing. I'm sure you've said it yourself. Never over leverage yourself. Don't put your life savings into any one asset class,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let alone crypto, right? You shouldn't invest more than you can afford to lose. And we say that, and it almost becomes white noise. And people, they roll their eyes and they tut and sigh and they go, I know, whatever. Don't say that. Like, I get it. Stop. You're just covering your own ass. We don't say it to cover our asses, right? We say it because now what you have is a situation where the market didn't do what pretty much everyone anticipated it was going to do, right? Not just crypto YouTubers, but Raoul Paul, Tom Lee, Michael Saylor, like, you name the analyst. Everyone thought the market was going much higher in 2025 than it did, right?
Right.
And so now you have this situation again where the market underperformed where people thought it was going to. People didn't listen and over leveraged themselves, putting their life savings in and stuff like that. And now they're emotional and they're angry and they're upset and they're pointing fingers at people because people were anticipating higher whatever. And at the end of the day, if you had not over leveraged yourself, if you had lived by the creed of not investing more than you can afford to lose, you wouldn't be emotional or upset right now. You'd be like, oh, my portfolio's down. I guess give it a year or two, right?
Yeah.
That's actual, like, as you know, that's how actual investing is done, right? Oh, it's down. The market will return. Give it 12 to 24 months. We'll see. But you've got these people who threw their life savings in, and now they're pissed because they're not rich yet, right?
Yeah. I can remember, I think it was 2008 when the market crashed, right? And I had a friend of mine that I remember him going something like the Dow is under 8,000. He was like, "Oh my god, I'm sinking everything," you know. And it was literally like the bottom of the market. And he was like, I'm putting it all down on black, you know? And I was like, really? Like, you're putting it all, like, at the time it was kind of scary, you know? It was like, I don't know, like, everything is kind of, tanked or whatever. And he was like, I'm putting it all in, you know? But I think it worked out for him on that one. And, I'm sure he didn't hold it, all the way up, but, case in
Well,
point.
even a, even a broken clock's right twice a day, right?
Right. Right.
Uh,
Hey, no, go ahead. You
I was going
got
to give
some?
I was going to give a shout out here to Infinite Wisdom for becoming a member of the channel, and of course, Ramona dropping that cheddar. She says, "Happy Saturday, weirdos." I think she's talking to Ray Ray. No, to seeing if there's any questions. We got Ray Ray in the house and Gamma Goddess, Jasmine Crypto reposting on X. AZ Marine is in the house. Blockchain Buzz is my weekend favorite. There you go. That's what we like to hear.
Got the banana. There we go.
Shook Focus in the house as well. What's going on, buddy? Okay. So what do you got? What, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I got something for you. Here's a new topic to talk about. So I saw a post on Reddit, and obviously, you start a conversation. I saw a post on Reddit. This could go anywhere.
Yeah.
I saw a post on Reddit. Hear me out.
You lost me.
And
so now just goes bing.
Exactly. And the censorship bar comes on. All right. So I saw the post, and the guy was talking about altcoin season, right? And he was saying just how how much of these altcoins have underperformed, and everybody's listing all their altcoins that they're like, didn't do anything, and they're going down the list of all these things. And his argument was that with crypto, you're not getting equity when you're buying tokens, right? So, like in the stock market, for example, when you buy stock, well, you're technically a part owner of that company at that point in time, right? So they have a board meeting, they got to let you know, the results, whatever. They're having this meeting, whatnot. But you're basically buying ownership, right? And he was saying the inherent problem with all the altcoins is that you're not getting ownership. So what are you getting? You're getting a coin. And, they were kind of debating like, is it the technology that matters? Is it the hype that matters, right? Is it the market, right? Is it because you have an influencer like Elon or a charismatic founder like Hoskinson that's, posting YouTube videos every Thursday? Like what is it that you're actually buying into? Like, how do you tie in a cryptocurrency to a real world company or blockchain or something that has market share and it's supposedly making money? How do you correlate them when it's not ownership, right? It was kind of his argument.
Yeah.
And it kind of got me thinking, I thought, I'm like, he's kind of got a point. I can see where you're going with that. And then it got me thinking, well, what if, now hear me out. What if instead of your existing supply, like let's take Jasmine for example, right? So let's just say the supply is 10 million coins. Obviously it's not, but let's just say it is. So if it's 10 million coins, well, rather than a Jasmine token, what if it was 10 million Jasmine NFTs that signify a portion of ownership? So think about this, like what if in your like in the stock market, in a typical company, you have what's known as a cap table. And in that cap table, they break down equity of the company, right? Who owns what, and, board investors, whatever. And everybody owns a little bit. And, that equity, like with the stock market, can split over time, and you can have more shares and whatever. But in crypto, you don't have that. So what if you had a real company and you said, well, 25% of the equity is going to be allocated to our cryptocurrency, which is actually an NFT. And the NFT is like a real estate contract, right? So basically you can offer ownership. And so if you think about it, could you take that NFT and then, I don't know if you could still make utility with it or not. You know what I mean? Like in the blockchain, you have to have like the ERC20 Ethereum token, whatever, or if you're on your own blockchain, okay, fine. But if you're doing it this way, you're really doing ownership. And I remember there was it was like a golf course thing. I don't know if you remember this one. It was called like Lynx, and they were offering NFTs. And some of the people that held them, it was like Steph Curry, and some of these, famous athletes or whatever.
2021, right? 2020, 2021.
Yeah. And if you have that NFT, it gets you into this golf course wherever it is or whatnot. It was like a golf membership, if you had the NFT. And so it really did kind of get me thinking, like across the board, that in crypto, if you really have no ownership, what do you own in that? And is there a way that you could sort of redo this with ownership if it was an NFT?
Well, I think that I've never really thought about it in that aspect before, so it's very interesting. But what I would say is Ramona read my mind here with her comment. I think that what would have to happen is you'd have to have regulators like the SEC and the CFTC would both have to come together to create some sort of a framework for that conversion of a commodity into a security, because it would at that point become a security, right? I mean, there's no way around that.
Yeah.
So I think that should suggest to the regulators that they should create a pathway for that, because really I could see a lot of more serious global companies taking that sort of a direction.
Yeah, and think about going back to the Jasmy example, right? Like right now, you may have Jasmy coin, but what does that mean? You don't own the company, and you don't own a piece of that company. And truthfully, their business results have no bearing on that coin. Now, we'd like to think they do, but do they? Not really, right? And so, if you have ownership, is there something more? I guess really what it comes down to is what's more tangible? Is it some form of ownership, or is it just the coin? And I don't want all that other headache that comes with ownership. I want to ride the hype of this thing, right?
Well, I think you're owning speculation. Really, that's really so. When you think about it that way, you could take almost, with some exceptions, but almost any given altcoin, and it would pretty much make all of them little more than a gamble, despite utility. Like, with the exception of stuff like your XRPs, because it's not, Ripple didn't create XRP, and that's kind of a different breed of coin. But outside of that, you got your Jasmys and stuff like that. Those would become little more than speculative gambling plays outside of right, regardless of utility at the end of the day, because like you said, we're not talking about the utility of it, we're talking about what do you actually own. Right, and the answer is nothing. Right.
Yeah. If you think about cryptocurrency, it's a derivative, right? But a derivative of what? What is it a derivative of? I mean, think about it. Like if it's not ownership, then it's just what, a derivative of
Trust me.
USD fiat. I mean, what is it? And then how does it then tie back into, let's take Cardano. What am I buying here when I buy Cardano? What do I actually own?
Nothing. Hopes and dreams. That's
Hopes
about
and
it.
dreams, thoughts and prayers, shits and giggles.
Really, it is true. So I could see, as we move further and further along the road of adoption, and financial institutions and hedge funds, and even pension funds and stuff like that, as we move into that kind of phase of adoption, I could see that kind of question becoming far more popular. Okay, so you want this pension fund to buy Cardano or whatever, right?
Right.
Okay, so but they want something a little more tangible than speculation, right? I don't think it's a stretch to say. I mean, listen, you and I have had many conversations over the years about things that end up coming to fruition. It's like, well, it's not the stretch to the imagination, and then all of a sudden it's happening, and oh, what do you know?
Well, and think about this too. I mean, not all coins are created equal, right? So Bitcoin, for example, is a commodity. You can't just like, I guess technically you are sort of an owner of Bitcoin in a way, but Bitcoin is not like a company,
Right.
so they're different. But Jasmy, for example, is a company. Cardano has, I think it's Input Output Hong Kong, IOHK. That's their company, right? But when you buy Cardano, is it a commodity? I mean, is it ownership? What do we buying here? And so maybe you're onto something there. With maybe there needs to be in this framework a pathway somewhere for some sort of ownership in a derivative within crypto, and maybe that would be appealing. And you could theoretically have both within the same project if you really wanted to, right?
Absolutely.
Because you would basically just have whatever the coin is and whatever the supply is, and then you could also have an NFT that basically represents a certain amount of ownership.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unprecedented. It's perfectly normal for commodities to be transformed into securities. It's not new, right? So it's not a new concept. So we'd really just have to tweak probably already existing framework to convert that. And then, like you said, you could kind of have a hybrid of both, where if you can keep a certain percentage as a more risk on speculative, I just want to hold the coins kind of thing, and then when you want that more tangible ownership, a larger percentage, especially for bigger money, they're going to want the more safe route, right? They'll take a
Yeah.
little bit of risk, but
Well, I think when you think about it through the lens of like the ETFs, right? Like I can see how they want to get into Bitcoin because they actually own Bitcoin, right? Through their ETF. But when you take those same ETFs and say, do they want to just buy, you know, Polkadot or, Cardano? What do they own there? And you think about them in the scope of, like the whales like having that seat at the boardroom, right? I mean, you hear about stuff like that all the time where it's like, yeah, this particular investor, isn't happy with whatever, or they're pushing this agenda or whatever it is, but they really can't do that. So I guess maybe what the guy's argument in the post was is that the space is kind of limited until it has an option like this.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It could be a little bit of a hindrance because let's be honest, when you're talking about smart money, when like for example, we know that uh, we're now going to see how many more financial advisors across the United States are now allowed to recommend to their clients cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin, ETFs, whatever the case might be, right? Well, when they have their financial advisors, smart money, when their financial advisors come to them and say, "Hey, Cardano is a good option," what's the first question they ask? What the hell's Cardano? Right? What do I own? What is it? What do they do? What's the company? What's my what pull do I have as a shareholder? Because they come from a traditional stock mindset, right? What's my vote worth? What's my shares worth? Blah 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 blah. Well, nothing. You have no say in anything, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're, I mean, getting into a DAO, but um, that's neither here nor there. But so you're absolutely right. That's the first thing that they want. Smart money wants to know what's tangible in this. What are the risks, right? And I buy it, but I own nothing. I have no say in anything. No, I'll pass.
Yeah. Like think of it like this. Like if you go into like like a Chuck E. Cheese type place, somewhere like that, right? You go in, you trade your money in for coins, and then you use their coins in the place, right? And crypto, in a way, is kind of like that. You're trading in your money for this derivative, but then what do you get for that derivative? Well, depending on the currency, maybe you can stake it, maybe you have voting rights, maybe you can do this or that, whatever. You have different options, but the question comes back to with the institutional players, well, is that good enough to get them in the door? And that was his argument. It was the poster felt like the alt season had underperformed, and that was like the Achilles heel of it, is that you're not offering ownership outside of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid argument. I think it's one of many reasons why, though. I don't think it's like the reason why, but it is a valid argument for sure as to probably um, a whole soup pot full of reasons why altcoin season underperformed. A lot of people have the perspective that it underperformed because there's millions of coins now versus, uh, 2021. I personally I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that because uh, even only I mean, if that was the case, while we did see like XRP hit new all time high and Ethereum barely, but these projects barely reach new all time highs. Like what was XRP, like $3.30 or something like that? Ethereum just barely squeaked out a new all time high as well. I think that those kind of projects would have performed way, way better than they did if it was a simple case of the market being watered down by so many altcoins. I don't think that's the case because the money still would have flowed into the top projects, and it didn't really,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And I would also argue that most I would dare to say, let's say half. You can cut the total amount of crypto projects in half, first of all, because half of them are dead meme coins that were probably rug pulls or nobody invested in, and they're just kind of there, right? They add to the market cap because of the existing coins, but they're just kind of there. So money's not flowing into them. So I don't really think saying that the money was more spread out is a valid argument either, because no one's buying. Half those cryptocurrencies are all stuff no one's buying, right? First off, secondly, we also didn't see and haven't seen any interest whatsoever in the NFT market. Whereas in 2021, a lot of capital, and I mean a lot of capital, flowed into speculative NFT collections and stuff like that in the previous cycle. One could argue, well, why didn't that water down the altcoin season?
So what if, like you say, it's a soup pot, right? What if the money that was here in the years prior maybe went into AI this season?
I've seen a lot of people talk about that in the AI bubble and AI. I read an article saying, did the AI bubble steal the altcoin market, like the
Hmm.
altcoin season, right? And I mean, there is an argument to be made. You saw your Nvidias and your Metas and stuff like that do really, really well, and I think they'll continue to do well. But I have to just keep leaning. That's about half of it. I do think so, but I don't think it's necessarily because of people just believing more in AI, as I think it was that a stock like Nvidia felt safer and more certain than any given altcoin, than like buying Cardano, for example, right now, right? Because of tariffs and the lack of quantitative easing. I mean, Powell himself said that they would have started rate cuts they would have gotten rid of quantitative tightening at the beginning of 2025 as opposed to the end of it if the jobs numbers didn't have to be revised by over 2 million jobs because they were inaccurate numbers. So I think I lean more towards that, right? That we didn't get the end of quantitative tightening didn't happen until the end of 2025, let alone the rate cuts finally started. And by that point, I think it was just kind of too late. I mean, a lot of the people who were anticipating an altcoin season were like, well, we're past that time, right? So bear market, and people kind of started leaving, right? So again, I think it's a combination of those things, but I know I'm splitting hairs by saying, well, yes, stocks like Nvidia and the S&P 500 and stuff kind of stole some of the thunder from altcoin season, but I don't think it was because people believed in AI more. I just think it felt safer to be in the S&P 500 and in precious metals than it did to be in, because it's not just altcoins. Look at the Russell 2000, completely underperformed, barely squeaked out a new all-time high too. So I think it boils down to just a complete lack of appetite for risk on assets as a whole. And the only reason that Bitcoin probably hit a new all-time high was because, and Ethereum was because of these spot ETFs. They just felt safer.
Hey, so speaking of hedging your bets, did I don't know if we had talked about this. Did you see where Coinbase was saying that they were going to add full blown like stock trading to Coinbase?
Yeah, I read it this morning.
Yeah.
They're getting into like everything. One more reason to maybe buy some Coinbase stock, not financial advice, right? Coinbase has felt like the winning exchange for the United States. You know how the US is, right? The government works, of course. They whatever they pick, they pick a direction. We pick this company, we pick that company, and that's the golden boy company, right?
Mhm.
Coinbase, circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that being said, I do think that, Brian Armstrong, I think, has set the tone with them that they were going to try to be the most regulatory compliant exchange that they could possibly be. And I think, at least it appears, that they have the legal team to back that up, you know?
Yeah. Here's a question from Ramona. You want to field this one? She says, what makes owning a Bitcoin different than owning a Solana?
Well, Solana, to my knowledge, I could be wrong here, but was started from a company. And I would assume that, like most of them, they probably divested. And so it's basically just it's a derivative that then works within the Solana blockchain, and it's a utility token, right? So that's what Solana is. Bitcoin, as said earlier, is basically the world's first scarce digital asset. Was designed to be a peer-to-peer system to trade value, to exchange value, to avoid the banking collapse of '08, is what Bitcoin was. What Bitcoin has become today is something completely different. That all the ETFs that have popped up, and the Michael Saylor and strategy and all these things like that. That's not what it was intended to be ever. So it's something very different today, but it's basically your digital gold without having to have gold bars and physical storage, etc. You have something that's portable, and it is essentially a commodity. And so, it being a commodity, it should trade like a finite commodity. That's basically what we're kind of saying. It's a finite commodity. So again, similar to gold, silver, whatever. And you can sort of see the intrinsic value in it like that. Bitcoin doesn't have utility. I don't know if I'd go that far, Ramona. I don't know if I'd go that far. You have seen it work in, was it El Salvador, right? Where they're using it as a payment system. Now, again, it wasn't really, I don't know if it was fully intended like they're doing it there, but they are. So it's not a utility in the sense of Bitcoin's on the Bitcoin blockchain and, you're staking or something. That's not what it is. So it's again, they're different, right? Right. It's kind of like comparing like a pear and an orange. They're both fruits, but they're totally different.
Yeah. Spencer says Coinbase wallet is a disaster right now. Lit, buggy, unusable. My response to that would be right now.
It's funny you say that. Coinbase, I don't know why, but just going back in time over the years, they have always got periods of just glitchiness where like things don't work, and there's only so much that can go through the pipe at one time, and it seems like it constantly, like it never quite has enough infrastructure to accommodate the load. At least that's what they're telling us.
I was gonna say, do you think maybe it's just the volume that they have in terms of customer usage, like the trading and because that's what they use as an excuse whenever they shut it down, right? They say, well, our servers can't handle the volume, so you can't trade for 5 days because Bitcoin crypto's pumping, right?
Yeah. So think of it like this. So something that they do in the tech world that they usually do annually on software is called load testing, right? And in load testing, you're testing the software to see how many users it can accommodate, right? And so in the case of Coinbase, I imagine they do load testing on that system yearly, biannual, maybe every other year, something like that. And when you think about these high volume scenarios where all of a sudden all the users are on all at once, does it all work? That's where the wheels start to fall off, because basically all of this software is connected like a spider web. It's like Vecna and Stranger Things, right? It's connected to the hive mind everywhere. But the moment all those users come on board, everything starts busting loose, and then the whole thing, nothing works properly. And they seem to inherently have this problem, like again and again and again. And I think from the outside, we want to believe that, Coinbase has it all figured out. But I don't know if they do. I don't know if they do. The really challenging thing when you're in the US and you're in like the corporate world is a lot of times the IT, the development people, they all come from India, right? For the most part in the US. And they're here temporarily. They're going back and forth. These projects take years on end to do. And where you started to where you quote finish, it's never the same team. It's never the same like direction. Everything changes. And so it's very difficult to consistently have your software perform up to whatever that peak load is that they're trying to accommodate.
But for me, though, I mean, I have to ask the question, shouldn't they have learned anything from the 2021 cycle in terms of these things? And should they not have been able to solve at least some of these problems in the last 4 years? Peak load. Why you got to point that out?
You would hope so. You would hope so. But again, maybe not,
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't know. I feel like, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like when exchanges do that, because it's always the big ones. It's always Binance. Coinbase is the worst for it, but it's Coinbase, right? 2021, it was Kraken. I haven't seen them do it yet this time around, but it always comes down to the same thing. They crypto pumps. It's going crazy. It's going parabolic, and they shut down your ability to trade. And they say, well, it's server volume and stuff like that, right? Okay. One, you should have learned from the previous cycle because you were here for it. And two, what a coincidence that nobody can sell. I feel like, are you solvent? Is that really the problem at the end of the day? Is that you actually don't have the money for everybody to be selling, and
Okay, so let me tack onto that. So where you're going with that's a good spot, right? So basically, this is the issue of a bank run, but it's on a crypto exchange, and the crypto exchange is the bank, and this is the bank run. And so what's funny here with the whole bank run train of thought is in TradFi, your traditional banking in the US, they don't have to accommodate anywhere near often what some of these exchanges are trying to do. And let me give you an example of this. So this is funny. This happened to me just the other day. I got a business debit card through Capital One. Okay, now Capital One is like however many hundreds of billions of dollars, whatever. And so I got this card, and I didn't get the card yet. It wasn't even here yet, right? And I get this letter that shows up before I even got the card. And it was like, hey, we saw you ordered the card. We need you to call us. and it was like this really vague letter from Capital One, right? So I call up Capital One. I'm like, hey, I got this card about banking. They're like, yeah, okay. They're like, okay, we got to go back. Okay, this is a recorded line. I'm like, okay, great. So she goes, I have to ask you 2 questions. Okay. So the first question is basically like this rambling paragraph of like, you're not a drug dealer. You're not cooking meth in the basement. You're not selling ice cream to, 3rd graders, all this stuff. Right. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of that.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah. And she gets to the second question. She's like, okay, Now, the second question is based around something you put in the application. Okay, I say okay, and she said, "We asked if you were going to cash money, like if you were going to cash deposits, right?" And I said, yeah. I said, I'm using this for rental properties, and I cash checks, I deposit checks. She's like, wait a minute. You said cash. I'm like, I take their check that they had me for the rent and I put it in the bank. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, in that case, we're going to change this to no. And I'm thinking like, okay, time out. Like you're telling me you're this like multi-$100 billion bank and you're worried that I just started a bank account that, by the way, you can see every transaction in it. You're worried that I may ask for cash, which tells me you don't have any money, right? This is Capital One on a brand new business account.
I'm not sure I want to do business with you guys. How about that? How about you fill out an application for me?
This is why Bitcoin was created, was because of that. Because clearly you don't have the assets one-to-one in your bank. You don't even have a fraction of it, right? It's not there.
Wow.
So anyway, I know that's a side story, but it kind of tacks on to the whole Coinbase thing and why it never works when there's a bank run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And but the funny thing is, though, it's supposed to, right? Like, and that's what I've said for so long is like, some people are worried about regulations. We need them because somebody has to make sure these exchanges are actually holding the money. FTX, right?
Yeah.
That they had every single customer had a portfolio on their app that showed how much money they had. But FTX, it was a cardboard empty box. There was nothing inside. Right? They had no money. And somebody has to, and I got to be honest with you, it's a little shocking to me that it's worse. How was it, 2022?
FTX?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
It's 2026, and there has not been a law passed yet to prevent that from happening again. Right?
Yeah. Well, the thing though, to be fair here, the thing with FTX, and I think I told you I read this in the Going Infinity book with Michael Lewis, is that when they officially became filed for bankruptcy, that's when they appointed the new manager, right, to manage basically the wind down of the company. And he was the guy that they had brought in for Enron when Enron went bankrupt. And they brought him in for FTX. And the crazy part about FTX is that they actually had all of the money and then some. But they didn't know where it was. That was the problem. And it's really a microcosm. It's exactly what SBF is and was, which was this guy that wears, the same scraggled t-shirt like 18 days in a row in his cargo shorts and drives his Honda Accord, and he ran it the same way. And unfortunately, the people that were in the company, like the quote CFO, how the CFO doesn't know where the accounts are is insanity, right? But they didn't know. And the irony is that in the bankruptcy settlement, all the creditors made money.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. I don't know if that's ever happened before. The people made money as bankruptcy creditors,
Well, I think that now SBF is trying to get out of prison because of that or something.
Yeah, no one lost any money.
So let me out of here.
He just mismanaged all of it, which, and again, thinking about it from a business standpoint, obviously the CEO has to take some accountability. However, the chief financial officer, this is like their job to manage the money.
Literally.
I don't know where that person was or what they were doing. Who knows?
Speaking of that, though, before I go into Ramona's super chat, I think it was it Icy Amphibian? I think it was Icy that asked me, because I did ask Hara about being solvent. Because when I had gone down to visit Hara, we had just witnessed the collapse of what was that project again? You and I spoke about it last time we talked. Starts with a K. I
Oh,
think
um, Cadena.
Cadena, yes, because of insolvency issues, right? The market conditions, and
Yep.
so I did ask Hara about that, being the chief financial officer of Jasmine, right? So I kind of brought that up, and it is another thing that we discuss in the documentary. Actually, is Jasmine's as a company solvency when it comes to these things. So so it'll be I know you'll like to hear his thoughts on that. So that's why I
Yeah,
brought it up.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm very much so looking forward to part two. I know I said that off camera earlier, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I like how Ramona just kind of left it at the end of part one, where we're just going in to sit down. It's like a little cliffhanger right before part two comes out. So
Yeah.
uh, his his my I don't know if I talked to you about this, but my friend, my camera guy, uh, he's one of my best friends. He works for me. He's about I don't know 6'3", 425 pounds, something like that. 400. So he very very big guy, right? Like I call him Big Rob, and people call me Big Rob, right? So so Hara turns the corner, and you can't quite see it on camera, but he turns the corner. And he's, oh, these two giant guys are standing here. It was priceless. Yeah. Sheer surprise on his face. I don't think he'd physically seen a human being that big in person before.
Maybe not. But in Japan, I mean, they got what? Sumo, right?
Yeah,
They got sumo over there, so maybe he might
maybe
have.
that's something that's one of the things I was upset I didn't go watch. I wanted to go find a sumo wrestling match, but I'm going back to Japan in November of this year. So
You need to look for the kumite.
okay, USA. I'm actually, funny enough, I'm catching up with Hara again though next month at East
Oh,
Denver. Yeah, we talked off camera after the interview, and I'm going to go to the. I was asking him if Junction was hosting another event at East Denver, and he said yeah. So I said okay. Well, I said how about we reconnect in February then, right? And he's like, he says absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He's like, plus he also volunteered to do an AMA online as well for the channel, to come onto the channel and do another one down sometime in 2026. Uh, so I'm waiting for like a major development with the company or something, and then I'll message him and say, because he responds directly to me now.
oh,
Uh,
cool. Very cool.
yeah. So I just fire him a message when something big's coming out for Junction and say, hey, how about we get on and do that AMA? Let's do it for the channel, right? And so, but I am catching up with him again at East Denver, and we're going to sit down and do another interview and see how everything's going. So, yeah, we got along really, really well. So, Ramona says commodities are actual things, but Bitcoin cannot be held in your hand. See, that's something I've heard a lot of people say too, just to kind of like the people who don't like crypto or Bitcoin, they say, well, what is it? I can't physically touch it. Well, can you physically touch your stock in Nvidia? Can you go pick up your Nvidia stock physically in your hand at the and put it in your pocket and walk around with it? Can
Yeah.
you? Not that I know of,
Yeah.
right?
Good point. Good point.
So it cannot be eaten or even seen with your eyes. I think it's more like non-inflationary fiat.
Yeah, that's there's some truth there. It is sort of like a non-inflationary fiat.
Yeah.
It's a way of retaining value. You know, that's really what it is. It's locking in value. And personally, I think the best way you can do that is with Bitcoin or real estate. Right? That's when you're locking in that value.
Well, my stance on Bitcoin is that I never sell it, right? I only ever always accumulate it, and I'll never sell it because, and people say, and I get it, I get it. Why would you invest in something if you're never plan on selling it? I get that argument. That's an altcoin argument, though. Bitcoin, as far as I'm concerned, I look at it more like I look at land. I look at it like I look at land, right? It's a forever appreciating asset that there's never going to be any more of, right? And if I ever did need cash, if I needed to be liquid, I could take out a loan against my Bitcoin, yet still own that Bitcoin that's going to continue to forever appreciate. So if I can do that, if I can get liquidity when I need it and still be the owner of the Bitcoin, why would I ever sell it when I know it's going to continue to appreciate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. I think it was an interview I saw with Brian Armstrong, Coinbase, and he said in the early days that he gave, I think he said like he has like a niece and nephews, something like that, and he gave them Bitcoin as like a, hey, here's for your college fund, and years later, obviously it's gone way up. It's like you can pay for a lot more than just college with that Bitcoin. So, keep holding on to that thing.
No kidding. Yeah. Rue says, interesting, Ramona, but Pokemon cards are things too. But since people will pay hundreds of dollars, I actually collect Pokemon cards too. So I don't open them. I buy the box sets and stuff, and I stash them away. And my son's like, no. I always have, whenever I go and I buy a new box set release of Pokemon or something, I always have to buy two, because I got to give one to my son so he can open it, right? So otherwise, it's like, what did you buy this for? I can't even play with it, right? I'm like, here's yours, right? he's only going on 6, so like it's hard for me to explain to him that, when you're like 20, right? Everyone will have opened all of these packs and everything, and yours will be worth a lot of money, right?
So, yeah.
What's up? HTTR. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Those are collectibles, she says. Yes. You see any questions in the chat that you... Will fiat become a collectible? Some people use it as a collectible that don't like, wealth, I suppose.
Hey, collect those pennies. They're not making them anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One day they'll be worth lots. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting 2026, though, man. It's really hard to read which direction this market's going to go in. I refer to it as a mystery wrapped up in an enigma right now. Like, I see. I've literally made arguments on both sides of it, because I want people who watch my channel to have a broader perspective. You get some channels who say either only up or only down, right? I like to make videos when I find arguments for something that makes sense, why the market's going to go down or why the market could go up, whatever metrics being used or whatever, right? I like to make a video breaking it down, because I think people should have a more broad perspective of like, look, a lot of content creators would have new people in crypto believe that we're playing in a game of certainties, and we're just not.
True. Very true.
So I think I think I just try to be responsible by showing people like, look, here's an argument as to why 2026 could be very, very bearish. And then here's an argument as to why it could be very, very bullish. It's up to you to decide which one you think is going to play out. Right?
Okay, so I got a scenario for you. Okay, so going back to AI, right? And the AI bubble, maybe. The AI is like Jupiter, right? Everything that gets near it, it sucks it in and it tries to take as much money as possible, right? So I don't know if you follow OpenAI and Chat GPT, etc. Sam Altman.
Yep.
And so he's kind of like the darling, like the guy out front, let's say, of most of the AI space right now is him. And what I find interesting about this, is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Is that he's always asking for more money. Okay. And a lot more money, not like a little bit more money, but a lot more. They need all this more money, right? And it does make me a little bit nervous that I think all of their eggs are in the AI basket, right? Now I
Yeah.
can see there are other players in the space. Obviously, Google, Gemini, they've got more than one iron in the fire. They got all kinds of other things going, right? Not everything is bet on AI.
Yeah.
Same thing with Amazon, right? Amazon Web Services. They've got all kinds of other operation, even Meta and Facebook, etc. But OpenAI seems to be all in, straight on AI. And what's interesting is that the amount of power and GPUs and data centers and all this infrastructure, it's kind of like Tesla, right? Where Tesla, for the longest time, never made any money. And they were putting everything, all the money that they were raising into building more charging stations, right? Because you got to have the charging stations so that people can actually drive the car somewhere and charge it back up. But originally, none of that stuff was there. So it's a lot of investment in infrastructure. And I see AI the same way, that I think they're asking for more and more and more money and all this investment in infrastructure. But the other side of me kind of goes, okay, so you're telling me that this artificial intelligence is smarter than a human, smarter than Einstein, whatever, right? Multiples smarter, and the curve gets steeper, right? So if that were the case, can't it figure out a way to generate all the money that you need? Why are you asking for money, right?
Maybe he doesn't trust.
It's kind of a quagmire. It really is. Because if this thing is so smart and it's so revolutionary and world changing, then why isn't it just creating the money that you need? And why are you asking everybody for money, right? And so, there's a lot of...
Maybe it's telling him to ask for more money.
It might be saying, hey, buddy, you need to go ask for more money. That maybe it is saying that. Maybe he's talking to it. He might. I mean, a lot of people talk to Chat GPT, right? This could be true. But anyways, so a lot of people are saying that AI could be in a bubble. And the reason why is that the costs of running this AI are substantially higher than the income they're taking in, even with the users who are using it, right? And so the idea is that there could be a bubble.
Off the top of my head, I would point to Amazon. In the first, I think it was it 5 years or more? Amazon operated at a loss as a company. I remember him being on, I think it was Jay Leno. I remember, what's his face? Creator of Amazon. What's his name again? Bezos, yeah. Yep. I think he was on Jay Leno. And he was asked that very question. Like, so you've just been a company that's existed for like 6 years, and you've never turned a profit. And he's like, yeah. Yeah, that's just what we do. Right? And look at Amazon today.
Yeah, they turned the corner, right? And it's kind of like they pushed it off long enough until they turned the corner. And, I can see the comment here saying that Sam was the president at Y Combinator, right? If you've never heard of Y Combinator, it's like a world-renowned VC. And so, yeah, obviously he knows how to raise money, no question. But, I do kind of wonder if the costs are so high and if everything's going into infrastructure, then I can see why he needs more money, which potentially makes it look like there could be a bit of a bubble or at least something to bet against. Now, going back to what we were saying earlier, the good and the bad, maybe the flip side of that coin is if at some point there is a bit of a bubble with AI. Now, not to say that it would be with Amazon or Google or the others that are hedged well, but maybe like an OpenAI, maybe NVIDIA runs into some issues, something like that. Maybe that's when you could see some of this money flow back onto the blockchain crypto side of things if there's turbulence in the AI space. I don't know.
I want to play this for you. I don't know. Have you ever watched this?
Atlas AI voiceover feature allows you to turn your words into voices you never.
We're joined by Jeff.
Have you ever watched this before?
I don't think so, no.
All right, check this out. This is from 2000.
Bezos, who actually founded Amazon.com and is the CEO of it. People used to say Amazon is amazing, and now they say, isn't it amazing that Amazon's losing so much money?
Well, we are a famously unprofitable company, and that is a conscious strategy and an investment decision. And we've always had a lot of controversy surrounding the company. We've been Amazon.con, Amazon.toast, Amazon.bomb, and my personal favorite, Amazon.org, because we're clearly a not-for-profit company.
But to lose money when you've got 20 million customers takes real skill.
Well, we have that. But what's really going on is we're investing. So, and most of our investors do understand that. If you look at our stock, it's, 2.5 years ago, it was at $3 a share, and now it's at $50 a share. So
via something a little higher.
And it went up as high as 100 and something at one point. So the internet stocks are very volatile. What's really going on here is we're investing. One of the places we're investing most heavily, in fact, is right here in the UK. We have one of the largest distribution centers in Europe right outside of London.
So the point is, I guess you kind of get the point, but it's not unprecedented.
No.
I think that recency bias just makes people forget things like this. It's been 26 years. What do you think about that? think it's apples and oranges, or?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, maybe not comparing it to Amazon. Maybe, Bezos with hair. I thought the same thing. Funny. He looks nothing like that today. Now he's like roided and jacked, Now he's ready to go, if he sees you in the parking lot or whatever. But, Tesla, going back to Tesla, Tesla's ratio has always been crazy, right? And it's like, where is the value in this thing that's always losing money or whatever? And the value is essentially in the data, all the data that they collect and all the data that they have. So in regards to OpenAI, could you say they have an absolute ton of data and there's an insane amount of value in there? Definitely, right? I mean, think of everything that goes into that thing, right? There is a lot of data. So maybe a lot of it is simply the data. I have a friend of mine that has bet against Tesla 2-3 times, and every single time he loses. And it just like bugs the crap out of him that, this company just continues to go up, and he's like, why does it keep going up? And I don't know, they just have it. So maybe OpenAI just has it, but I don't know. Something about OpenAI in particular makes me a little bit nervous.
Well, every company that's doing really well over the last, let's say, year and a half, 2 years, whether it's OpenAI, NVIDIA, whatever the case might be, Meta, they are all going to have significant corrections, right? So maybe I don't know if you're holding any right now, but maybe wait to buy some until it corrects. Right? It is, at the end of the day, I think in the big picture, it will still be a good stock to hold.
Yeah.
But like every bubble, or if you don't want to call it a bubble, we'll call it a bubble because I think they're all bubbles and they all pop and they all come back down and then they find a base, right? They go down, they come back up, they find a level to consolidate, and then it's probably boring for quite a while.
Yeah.
I
think with AI, and this kind of tacks onto the Y Combinator comment. I don't know if you follow any of this, but Y Combinator loves to invest in AI projects, right? Like everything they invest in today is AI related. And most of it is almost, not all of it, but a large majority of it is almost like AI garbage. Like it's AI repackaged, and it's always about uh production, and it's like, three friends, and it's like, yeah, we're going to save you time with your Outlook calendar by applying AI to it, and now you have more time for meetings. And Y Combinator gave them like 500 grand, and you're like, what? And it's kind of like there's one thing after another like that in the list. Now there are some really good ones, so don't get me wrong here. There are a few really good ones in there, but most of them are kind of like that. And it's like, I can see where from the outside you'd see those things and you'd say this AI thing is going to implode at some point in time, because clearly most of these are garbage. And I think they're just sort of hedging their bets by investing in all of them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. Look at all of the crypto projects that they'll add like an AI agent to that gives them like crypto market statistics or whatever the case might be on their platform, and then all of a sudden they say, see, we're AI now, it's just slap an AI tag on us. And
yeah,
meanwhile they're not an AI project at all. Yeah, I get it. I agree with that for sure.
Well, fun fact, Brian Armstrong went through Y Combinator with Coinbase, and part of Y Combinator's sales pitch is their alumni network. So if you think about that, he and Sam Altman know each other.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So mull that one over in your tea leaves.
One thing we hadn't touched on, I wanted to briefly touch on, was we talked a little bit about it off camera, but this whole Venezuela thing.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when the markets open on Monday?
Boy, that's a loaded question right there, right? A loaded question. Okay, so reading between the lines, not reading the lines. We're kind of being told that, U.S. went into Venezuela. We set this up by bombing supposed drug boats that no one ever got on, confirmed, verified. We just assumed, right? So we started bombing the boats to tee up this. So I read somewhere that there was something about this that was already in play, and maybe it was a little more organized, maybe not. That could have been a lie. Who knows? But we the helicopters dropped some missiles, whatever. We supposedly kidnapped the president and his wife, and we say it's for drug offenses, right? Well, if that's the case, it's for drug offenses. I mean, I don't know why we haven't gone into Mexico and kidnapped their president and, her husband or whatever, along with Colombia, and kidnapped him and his wife and, and so on, right? I mean, we could just kind of go all around. I mean, shit, if we're going to go that far, why not do the same thing in America where there's a ton of drugs that are homegrown? So the whole drug story, that doesn't add up at all. So then you got to kind of go, okay, so why else would we do this? This guy like really this perpetual thorn in the side, or are there strategic reasons? And I think, with Trump being back again, a lot of the stuff that he kind of says is sort of strategic in thought, right? Just in general, let's say, like, hey, Canada should be the 51st state because, you guys need us and we need you, and you got all the lumber. I mean, that's a given, right? That I don't know where we're getting that now.
We do have wood.
You got wood.
You got wood.
Canada brings the wood, right? But anyway, Greenland, right? He's like, hey, Greenland, and everybody's like, what do you mean Greenland? Like, why do we want that? And it's like, oh, there's stuff to make chips there, and then it's like, hey, and we got rid of the Panama Canal, it's like, oh, we need that back, that's strategic. and I can see some of this, right? Because theoretically, yeah, I mean, all these different places have value, whatever. And so I think that's what's behind this Venezuela thing is the value of Venezuela. And the big value of Venezuela is frankly oil, right? And
Yeah.
obviously there's a huge business tie-in here with all the gas companies that were there, the oil companies prior to them sort of taking it all over. And was this sort of the opportunity to bring it back? Maybe. Now, what does that mean for the markets, right? Does this mean the oil stocks are going to start taking off? What about like Blackwater and things like that? You know, these mercenary groups that the U.S. pays to go in and be the quote security forces, right? So theoretically, I don't know. There might be a little bit of bump in the market, maybe, but you know, the problem, the hard time I have with Trump in office in the market is he's so zigzaggy every day that I don't know what's going to happen the following day or that afternoon or literally any time, you know? So it's very hard to say that the markets are going to be great when basically since the moment he's got here, everything's tanked, you know?
Yeah. Well, like you said off camera there, it seems like every single time the markets start to show some life, the next morning Trump comes out with some tweet that crashes everything, right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
the market's really good. By the way, just bombed the country, bro.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You know, like the running joke on Reddit is like, okay, so the Epstein files are coming out Friday. And it's like, I guess we're starting a war Thursday. And that's kind of like the running joke in all the comments. You know? Yeah. And you know what's funny is even a lot of the players like in crypto that were behind him, right? To obviously get rid of Gensler. That was awesome. We all wanted that. Everybody wanted Gensler gone. No one liked Gensler. He's out. Great. But like even Hoskinson came out publicly and said, you know, I think we would have had our legislation by now if he hadn't launched Trump coin and ripped off, you know, the whole market. And it's like, you know, so it's like you did a good thing and then you followed it up with, like you said, like the other thing. And now we're kind of like in this weird space, you know, where we're still waiting on the legislation, you know?
Which makes me wonder, like, when we finally do get legislation passed, what's going to happen? He's going to come out. He's going to boast about it being all due to him, which whatever. Have your you know, your credit. But then within a week, he's going to do something terrible, right? To crash everything.
Right. Right.
You can't win for losing with this guy. I agree. Now, in saying that, though, I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, you know, and I don't want to get political, but I see people saying, well, you know, if Kamala had won, crypto would be doing better. Let's just hold your horses there a little bit, right? You'd be getting body slammed through the floor with lawsuit after lawsuit still, and you know, you'd be seeing, you would not be seeing any legislation trying to be passed at all right now, because Biden would just veto everything right off his desk. So let's not get too crazy with the assumptions here, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I would say that Elizabeth Warren's voice was very loud with Biden about what a scam and how awful crypto was, and it's all for money laundering, blah 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 blah. You know, and if there was a Democrat in office, would she be equally as loud? Probably. Yeah. And might Gensler still be there? Maybe. If he wanted to. I don't know if he would want to, though, honestly. I mean, he was kind of a pinata for years on end. But like you said, I mean, at one point in time, I mean, they were filing like 2-3 lawsuits a week against every entity in crypto they could find, you know, like it was just kind of nuts. And I, you know, from a legal standpoint, I don't know how I mean, the amount of like attorney power and planning and all the stuff that goes into like an actual case like that. I mean, like, look at XRP. I mean, that thing was tied up for years, you know, and in the US government, I mean, the way that things turn over, I don't know what he was thinking with that strategy. Gensler, that is. I don't know what he was thinking, trying to just, you know, kneecap everything as opposed to figuring out a path forward, you know?
Well, I mean, the speculation is that he wants to run for Congress, right? Like,
Does he?
don't be surprised. Like, there's been I've read a lot of stories about how he wants to be a congressman. He wants to be, in the White House as Treasury Secretary or something. Don't be shocked when the heat dies down with Gary Gensler and all the stuff that he did. Don't be surprised to see his ugly mug pop back up in some election somewhere, running for Congress or something. Don't be surprised. And I think that part of the reason he was doing what he was doing was to have the right people backing him to win whatever chair it is he's trying to win next, right?
Maybe. I guess it just depends on what side you're on with that. I mean, I'm kind of independently in the middle, and I thought Gensler was colossally unpopular. But then again, I simply followed him on a day-to-day. I could see if you didn't really follow him day-to-day, and maybe you'd say, yeah, he's doing the right thing and holding people accountable. But if you followed him day-to-day, it was like, no, this guy's like totally out of control. And I don't know what the long-term strategy is here.
Well, that's the thing, is that only crypto people really followed him on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
The average voter in whatever state he decides to try to run in, he's going to come out and say, when Sam Bankman-Fried did this, I was there and I was fighting against this corruption in crypto and stuff. And he'll flip the narrative. You know how politicians are. And to have somebody, even as tempered as her voice is right now, having someone like Elizabeth Warren behind him is only going to help him. She's got a lot of pull, or she did, in the White House when Democrats were in power there. I was watching a lot of stories on it. She got a lot of influence. She had a lot of influence there, but thank God that she has been kind of silenced by Republicans kind of running the show right now. But my fear is that all the good that they're trying to do right now in terms of legislation and stuff, might all be for naught if midterms don't go that well, right?
They're not going to go well. They're not going well. No, they're not going well. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, kind of looking at it from the outside, the crypto market needs regulation, and it needs pathways forward, and it needs ways to be legal, right? And especially if the market is going to grow, and if the altcoins, like we talked earlier, are going to, have real companies, real entities investing in them, like the pension fund of Wisconsin. Are they going to buy, Veracity coin? No, of course not. You know what I mean? So, at some point in time, I mean, you do have to have these like a more established framework here, and you have to have something viable, and you got to have a way to keep people accountable as well. I mean, you can't, I guess, the thing in crypto is there's a lot of these like pie in the sky ideas, right? Like, oh, decentralization, and it's like, it's not really decentralized. That's like a carrot that somebody's dangling, or like, this idea of like, Binance is a great exchange. It's like, where are they operating now? It's like they're based out of the Seychelles, and like all these like shadowy places around the planet. It's like that's where they're domiciled, and you're like, like, like we got to have it more legit if you want it to be more legit, and maybe some of the fun of it is by not having it legit. It's like there's pros and cons to like a third world country, right? And that's sort of what crypto is. It's like your third world country, that there's pros and cons to it. But ultimately, I mean, in the natural evolution, I mean, these things are going to happen at some point. The question really is, are they happening anytime soon, right?
Yeah, they every time the Solana network goes down, they say, "Oh, we'll fix it." Well, who's we? Who the hell is we? There's not supposed to be a we.
Yeah. fix it.
Decentralized.
Yeah.
Oh, the plumber's coming in to fix it. What the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, who's fixing it? What are they doing? Yeah, there's not really any answers there.
Why do they exist?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, at some point you have to stop yourself from asking follow-up questions. Just stop. Just stop.
Yeah, no kidding. We got a question here. Wendy says, do you think with the shortage of silver, yes, actually, you know what? I don't know if you read or not, but China implementing restrictions on outporting silver. 60 to 70% of the supply they source out. And apparently they're putting mass restrictions on the outsourcing of silver from China.
Interesting.
That might add, if it's not an empty threat, to leverage for whatever it is they're trying to leverage for. One could assume they're doing that for leverage reasons, but another argument could be made that they see that we are moving into a lot of robotics development and stuff like that, and that all requires physical silver.
True. Very true. I think I like the leverage idea. I think just in general, having the leverage, that's a bargaining chip for them, you know?
Against Trump, right?
Against anyone, really. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I forgot. Oh, Bitcoin's trying to make a move here. We're at, we got up to 91.6. I think we're going to make our way up to that 101K level around the 50-week moving average, and then we're going to kind of reject off. Putting in that right shoulder. I don't think I've looked at this with you in a while. Let me put this up for a second. So this is what I've been looking at, and I'm sure it's probably what you've been looking at too, but let's look at it together because we can. Bitcoin, head and shoulders pattern.
Head and shoulders.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I think a move back up to the 50-week, which is currently at about $101,670, whatever. I think that makes sense, putting in that right shoulder over the next quarter before we come back down to the 200-week moving average, which is currently down here at about 57,000. That's what makes the most sense to me. I don't know. What do you think?
I can definitely see it. I mean, obviously within the channel we're in right now, where do we go, right? I've always been a big believer of the EMAs, right? You know, kind of, if you really want to trade crypto, just look at the EMAs and see what's happening there.
Yeah.
So I do think, you know, with the EMAs here, I mean, I could see the other shoulder coming in for sure. And then, you know, does it go down to that 200-day and then bounce off of that? Does it not go down to it, right?
Well, this is interesting. This little downside here, this little consolidation level, was 50 days. This one right here, we're at 48 days.
Interesting.
Yeah. Little consolidation, 50 days, little consolidation, give or take 50 days, move up to the 50-week. Because I really don't see a world where we're going to reclaim the 50-week moving average. It's never happened, right? We've never dropped down for this long of a period of time below the 50-week and then reclaimed it and then just went on to put in new all-time highs, right?
Right. Well, you know, something else too, not to be political or anything, but going back to a little bit of the political discussion is like the idea of, you know, disposable income, right? I mean, people need to have disposable income to invest in things. And I know right now money's tight with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, you know, because your price of literally everything is, you know, nearly doubled over the last 4 to 5 years, right? So my point in saying that is that if the government somehow had an influx of money to put back into the economy, which obviously is going to drive inflation up higher, but theoretically you would have a short-term stimulus, let's say, then maybe something could happen. Now, obviously, in the predicament we're in right now, there is no savings from Doge, and everything that's happened since has probably just put us further and further in debt in the US. So you got a problem there where you want to give away money that you don't have is basically kind of the issue. And the economy could really use that extra money. Now, something else to think about here, though, is we do have tax season right around the corner, okay, here in the US. So basically February to April. And so could you theoretically have some tax returns coming back? Yes. And, one of the things with Trump, and some of the stuff that they've done is, they basically gutted the IRS, which the flip side of that is maybe kind of a good thing. And that they're not going to be auditing anywhere near as many people as they likely did in the past, which means that more tax returns could be flowing back, aka more money into the economy to then put into something like that.
Well, here's another interesting thing that I've been monitoring. Now, as you know, back here, these yellow lines represent cycle tops. Okay. So what we had back here, right, the 2017 top, and then the 2021 bear market where we dipped just below for like a couple of weeks, just a hair below the previous cycle high at the bottom of the bear market, right, for 2021. So pretty much the previous cycle high maintained support as the bottom of the bear market, right? So here we are again. 2021 cycle high, 69,000 and change, right? 700, whatever, the yellow line. Here's the question. Is it going to hold as a bottom this time? Or following the yellow line here, right? The 200 moving average, the 200-week moving average, it is held as a bottom signal as well. We've dipped below it just by a little bit, right? Or ridden it at the bottom of each bear market. And then we have the COVID right here, right? Where it bounced right off the 200 and back up again. So they've both maintained reliability as metrics for signaling a bottom of a bear market. However, this time is different, right?
Where are you going with this, Rob?
Which one is going to break? Because if the previous cycle high maintains its reliability as a metric, and that is where we bottom, well, then the 200 can no longer be used as a metric in the future. And vice versa, if we collapse below 69K, the previous cycle high, down to the 200, well, then we can no longer use the previous cycle high as a reliable bottom signal. Something's got to give, man.
This is like that Spider-Man meme where there's like three of them and they're all pointing at each other. Huh.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting. The only thing that, in my opinion, you can do to try to catch the bottom, because listen, no one's going to time the bottom perfectly. So you shouldn't be trying to ape into a bottom no matter what, right? But for me, I guess the best strategy would be, in terms of, I'm speaking about altcoins here, would be once Bitcoin gets down around that previous cycle high, right? That's where I would start to, because right now I'm not DCAing into altcoins, obviously, when I believe we have lower to go. That's when I would start to, right around here is where I would start to DCA and take positions into my blue chips and stuff to get started, right? That's where I would start that. but I wouldn't be going crazy ape style. I would just be DCAing, because unless I see this for, I don't know, 2-3 months maintain its position as a support level, then I would become more aggressive, right? But if we drop lower down to the 200 week, this for sure is where I would start to become very aggressive.
Mm.
Because I don't think we'll go any lower than that. I think that's your absolute bottom, is the 200. Right? Unless both metrics break and we just
That'd be pretty low if if we were dipping below that 200. I mean, that'd be pretty low.
yeah, I don't see a world where that happens. So I don't know. That's the best strategy that I think you can really employ in terms of altcoins is, start your DCA journey lightly. Not financial advice, obviously, guys, but and then if you do drop down to the 200, that's where you can really start to become more aggressive.
Yeah, I wonder if obviously this is probably different based on the different Bitcoin ETF. But like let's say like BlackRock, for example. Like whatever number it started at to where it peaked and then how far it's dipped since. Let's say that maybe a third of the money that's within the BlackRock ETF said, "No, we want to get out. We're riding the wave. We're trying to chart this thing, and we want to sell our shares or whatever." But maybe those other 2/3 are simply just building. You know what I mean? Like I was saying earlier about the pension fund of Wisconsin, right? Like, are they really calling BlackRock like, "Hey, sell it, we're following the cycle"? Probably not. They're probably just saying, "Hey, let's get in on the ETF and let's hold this thing," So I don't know if I'd foresee it going, but let me throw a caveat here. Is that every time we think we know what's going to happen in the crypto market, that means they're teeing up to wipe out all the leverage. And it happens every single time. So if we say it's not going to go below the 200-day, they're going to yank it below. They're going to liquidate everybody, and then it's going to pop back up like a rubber band.
That's more of yeah, I agree with you. But for me, that's more of a concern if you're a trader.
Yeah, very true.
If you're just a spot, purchaser, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Buy the dip. This time's different.
Yeah. I always used to look at it like if the was it the 20, the 50, and the 100 or the main ones, basically when they go bear, when the 20 goes all the way down and the market flips bear, truthfully, that's kind of like your DCA opportunity when things go bear. And then when it flips back bull, you can turn off your DCA or you can leave it on or whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
And
it's an interesting question here. Could the 200 week be at 69K in August, bottom of the right shoulder? I mean, it could be closer to 69.7, but I don't think it would quite be there. You'd need to consolidate for quite a while longer for it, because you got to remember it's a 200 week moving average, not the 200 day moving average. Or we're looking on daily to weekly time frames. It takes a lot longer for those moving averages to work their way up. So it'll probably be higher than it is. Well, not probably, it will be higher than it is right now at about 57,000 even. It could be closer to, I don't know, let's hypothetically say 61, 62 I could see, but I couldn't really see it being as high as 69. I don't know. Maybe they do converge. Maybe they don't break. Maybe they converge and it holds as a bottom. That'd be one hell of a strong bottom, though, wouldn't it? Two significant levels of support together.
Yeah.
I think you could pretty much bet the farm at that point. It would probably be, I think it would take something drastic for it to drop below those support levels. Two support levels at the same level like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and even then, look what happened with C19. It dropped below, but V-shaped right back up again. Like an elastic band, like you said. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Either way, brother. Well, it's been about wow, 2 hours and 10 minutes. This was that went. I don't know about you, but that went by fast, dude.
There was a lot to cover.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like we could have went for another 2 hours. Holy smokes! But yeah, thanks for popping on last minute there. I didn't really plan anything for this week because, like I said, holidays. I figured everybody was either still kind of recovering or getting everything back together. And I was like, you know what? People were like, "Well, are you gonna do blockchain buzz?" I was like, you know what? I'll shoot Jesse a message and see if he's around. We haven't talked. Let's have a chat. So
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
anytime, man. Anytime you want to chat on the buzz or other things. I know we've been talking about the podcast. I'll have to talk to you more about that because definitely want to make that happen.
Yes, we got to get that rolling. We're in January already.
Tell me about it. Time's flying, you know.
Pretty soon it's going to be June, and we're like, fuck, we haven't started that podcast yet.
I know. I got to get my schedule to free up, or maybe we could do like a evening podcast, a couple nights a week, or something like that. I don't know, somehow to make that work. Now I got to figure out a way.
Absolutely, we'll figure it out, brother. I'll shoot you a text, or shoot me a text tonight or tomorrow. We'll start hammering out these details. At the very least, we'll get the foundation laid. We'll get it set up, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll work the schedule out afterwards.
Sounds good, man. And hope you had a good holiday up there. Hope you stayed warm, and happy holidays to everyone in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. That was a lot, but hopefully we got the plane back on the ground here at the end. So.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks again, man.
All right. I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. God bless.
See ya.